Hello, and welcome back to Perusing the Pages. I just got back from learning for the first time how to change my windshield wipers on my car. Everybody clap. I had to do it by myself. My dad and husband were not here to help me. And I was so smart and I was so clever that I figured out how to do it by myself. And a YouTube tutorial. Thank you. Speaking of a man who had to be clever and figure out how to solve his own problems, let's talk about the Odyssey. There has been so much hubbub about the Odyssey lately because Christopher Nolan's film came out. I have yet to see it. I would say no spoilers, but I've read the book, so how can there be spoilers? There's been thousands and hundreds and dozens of controversies and videos and opinions and all splayed out about Nolan's films. What's different is that a year ago, I read the Odyssey myself. I've always loved Greek mythology. Ever since my 7th grade English class where we did a Greek mythology unit, it was so cool. I loved reading Percy Jackson as a kid. And last year, a musical came out called Epic the Musical that details Odysseus's journey, his entire Odyssey. I re-entered my love and my passion of Greek mythology, and I decided that, I do want to go see this movie, so let me read this original story first. Just for funsies, because I'm that girl, apparently. The Odyssey, while it does stand on its own, it is part of a duality called with the Iliad. The Iliad details Paris and Helen's love story, the sacking of Troy and all that. The Odyssey picks up at the very end of the sacking of Troy. Troy has been conquered, it has been sacked, it's destroyed, everybody's going home. That is where the Odyssey starts. This book is originally published in ancient Greek, right? It is written by Homer, a famous poet, and it has thousands and thousands and thousands. That's an exaggeration. There's maybe 100 different translations of the Odyssey. There's probably 1,000 adaptations of the Odyssey. The version that I read was recently translated by Peter Green, and I specifically liked his translation because he offered different perspectives. On words that he wasn't specifically sure their translation, he added a footnote. While this could mean rising sun, it could also mean dawn, it could mean dusk. He left that little bit of wiggle room in his translation, and I really, really appreciated it. Because being someone who is bilingual, translating is not an easy thing to do. Words just don't translate language to language. As you translate things lose their meaning, they get changed, their intent changes. It's so difficult to translate something perfectly 100%. I understand that, just coming from a Spanish and English speaker. I can't imagine how difficult it is to translate something from ancient Greek, a language nobody speaks anymore, to modern day English. It's very difficult. So I appreciated Peter Green's translations where he offered that perspective of, it could be this, it could be this, up to your interpretation. In case you don't know already the story of Odysseus, let me give you a quick little summary. Let me spell it out for you. So Odysseus is king of Ithaca, and after the Trojan War, he sails home with his men. He was roped into the Trojan War. That's a different story, mostly from the Iliad. He didn't really want to go, and he has left his wife and his, at the time, newborn son. He's been in Troy for 10 years. He wants to go home. He's tired of fighting. I would be too, king. So he sets sail. And what should have taken a couple of days across the Mediterranean, maybe 2 weeks at most, depending on if the wind was with you, took 12 years. So all in all, he's away from home for over 20 years. And he does get help from different gods, monsters, and mythical creatures. Help is in quotation marks there because, as we learn in Greek mythology, just about nobody is actually helpful. Peter Green's translation starts by talking about Telemachus, Odysseus' son. Telemachus is nearing manhood / already kind of there, but he has never had a father figure in his life. Odysseus has not been home to raise him. He doesn't exactly know what it's like to be a man or how to lead or be future king. And he prays, and he actually gets help from the goddess Athena, goddess of wisdom. And Athena convinces him to go to a neighboring kingdom to ask about his father and those plans, and then to bring some soldiers home to kick out the suitors that have been in his house for the last 12 years trying to woo his mom. That's right, Queen Penelope, hottest chick in Ithaca, also super smart. She is desired by many, many a suitor. And Greek culture is that if someone comes to your home, you clothe and feed them, no questions asked. That is naturally what happens with these suitors. Unfortunately, those suitors are trying to win Penelope's hand, And she ain't about it because she never gives up hope on Odysseus. She always believes that he's coming home. Until she is given his dead body, she's forever going to think that. And so she spent the last 12 years trying to hold these suitors off. Meanwhile, they are depleting all of Ithaca's resources. They're drinking all the wine. They're eating all the meat. They are just imposing on this beautiful castle and being a general nuisance to society. Not to mention they've kind of started forming their own like mini gangs where they kind of go and bully other people, and it's a whole mess. Nobody likes strangers in the house. Now imagine you have strangers in your house for 12 years. There are only a couple chapters on Telemachus, Odysseus' son, because then we jump over to Odysseus' story and we revisit Telemachus only when Odysseus returns home to Ithaca at the very end of the book. Odysseus, meanwhile, leaves Troy and sets sail, and he ends up on the island of the Lotus Eaters. Now, lotus blossoms in Greek mythology trap you. They ensnare your mind and dull your senses. They are there to specifically keep you trapped on the island. And Odysseus, being super smart and being guided by his best buddy, goddess Athena, recognizes that and says, nope, we're not eating them. Oh, look, there's a cave up there with a bunch of sheep. Let's go eat the sheep instead. Unfortunately, those sheep were shepherded by the Cyclops Polyphemus. He's upset that his buddies, the sheep, because he has no friends, have gone missing. So he takes revenge by starting to kill Odysseus's men. Odysseus, however, is super smart, and he's like, I know. I'm gonna defeat you. He does. He blinds Polyphemus, traps him in his cave. Oh, to ensnare him, he tells Polyphemus, oh, my name is Nobody. That way, if Polyphemus goes and tries to get help, he's gonna say, who's attacking you, Polyphemus? Nobody. Nobody is attacking me. And everyone's gonna be like, loser, stop playing with your imagination, friends. Get out of here. Which is exactly what happens. His hubris, his great folly here, Odysseus has a moment of pride, and as he is leaving the island, he's made it out, he said, remember me, I am Odysseus, king of Ithaca. And it's like, boy, you just gave your full name and your street address. What did you think was gonna happen? Because Polyphemus is the son of Poseidon, that's right. The Cyclops is the son of Poseidon, because Greek mythology is weird. And when gods hook up with non-mortal things, they make monsters. Polyphemus says, Poseidon, kill that guy. He blinded me. He embarrassed me. I'm a fool now. Go kill him. And Poseidon says, gosh dang it, I hate getting involved in my kid's life, but like, you kind of right. Greeks are supposed to fight with honor, even if they're crazy, so whatever. Poseidon comes and he's like, I'm gonna make a big, huge storm. Odysseus, you're never getting home. You could have avoided all this had you just killed the Cyclops like Athena wanted you to. But no, you decided to be merciful, so now I don't get to be merciful. Thanks, bro. There's this giant storm that's after Odysseus, and it is causing him to go super off course. I fear for any of those sailors who got seasick. My heart goes out to you, man. Okay, we briefly visit the wind god, Aeolus, to get a little wind bag to try and skedoodle out of there, right? To get out of the winds of the storm. And we end up in the land of the giants. More people die, they escape. They end up going on to Circe's island. Circe is a sorceress. She turns the men into pigs. Odysseus fights her and is like, hey, you can't do that, my gal. I'm trying to get home. And Circe's like, what if I like seduce you so you like forget about that? Ooh. And Odysseus is like, girl, I'm taking it home to my wife. My wife is the hottest girl I've ever met in my life. You don't hold a candle to her. Get me off your island. And she's like, ugh, fine, I'll do it. Only because I don't love Poseidon, okay? I can't get you home, but I will send you to a dead prophet in the underworld. So they go to the underworld. They meet the dead prophet. And the prophet says, yeah, I do see somebody in your castle. It's not you, though, because, like, you're a happy-go-lucky guy. This guy is, like, haggard, super mean. He's got like a trail of blood behind him. They leave the underworld. They figure out how to leave the underworld first and foremost, because not very many people have done that. Remember Orpheus? Once they leave the underworld, they do pass by the sirens, who are like the monster. Everyone thinks they're mermaids, but they're not mermaids. They escape the sirens because he's smart, right? Smart boy. They hit the rock and the hard place. This is where this phrase comes from, and I love this because I love geeking out about it. Rock and a hard place comes from the term Charybdis, giant whirlpool monster, and like Hydra, harpy, dragon lady with a bunch of arms that kills people up in the cliffs, right? Rock, hard place. They choose Scylla the monster girl. So they swing by her, she picks off some people, and that pisses off his crew because they're like, bruh, you knew they were gonna die and you still sent them up there? Odysseus, you can't do that. There's a mutiny. They end up on Apollo's sacred island full of his sacred red cows. They're starving. They've been at sea for a while. They don't have a lot of resources. So they kill the sacred cows, and Odysseus is like, guys, you can't do that. Those are sacred cows. And they're like, screw you, we're hungry. And they die because guess who's Apollo's dad? That's right, Zeus, king of the gods. Zeus comes down to exact some revenge, and he gives Odysseus a choice. He says, all right, I can save all of your men and kill you, or I save you and kill all your men. What do you want? And Odysseus says, oh, yeah, my wife's hot enough. Kill those guys. The rest of his crew is gone. Odysseus is now by himself. He's completely alone from a crew of about 600 down to 1. He ends up on Love Island, episode Calypso. That's right, Calypso, the minor goddess, daughter of the Titan Atlas, who's holding up the world. She's got her own private little forbidden island. And she captures Odysseus, and he stays there for 7 years. Now you think, wow, 7 years on an island in paradise sounds great. Wrong! Because Calypso's trying to seduce Odysseus the entire time. She's like, you're so hot, look at your muscles, rippling pectorals. Bro, come here. I'm alone on this island. And he said, no, I have a wife. Married. Penelope be hot, she's fine. Gotta wait for her. I'm gonna get to her eventually. It is unclear if she rapes him or not. That is unclear. Depends on your translation. I'm going with the PG version that my man's just got some fidelity. Eventually, he does escape Calypso's island. He's really depressed though. He's really sad. He makes it out. He manages to fight Poseidon again, because frick you, Poseidon. He makes it to Ithaca. He disguises himself when he arrives in Ithaca. And this is when Athena jumps back in to start helping him. Because remember, Athena left after he was stupid enough to give his government name and full address to Polyphemus. She was like, dude, I can't be around stupid people. You know this. I've got a phobia. And anyways, she comes back and he arrives in Ithaca. You're gonna be in hiding this whole time. I'm gonna make you look like an old, gross man. Magic. And Odysseus scouts around for a while. He's like, okay, what's going on the island? Who are these suitors I'm hearing of? How's the prince doing? And the queen? She's still hot. He makes it to the Great Hall where all the suitors are, and then Penelope has set up this challenge. Hey, if you can string my husband's super old bow that's probably gonna break if you try and string it, because it's that old and that tough, and then if you do that and shoot an arrow through these 12 axes, then you can be king. And nobody can do it. Except Odysseus, who comes up and he's like, I can do it. Penelope, I can do it. Watch this. Strings this old brittle bow. Remember, it's super old and has not been strung in years. I don't know if you know about wood. It doesn't like to bend. And he does it. He shoots. He's awesome. And everybody's like, yo, who's this guy? And he's like, it's me, Odysseus. Time to die, fools. And he starts killing them. And Telemachus at this point joins up. He's like, hey, Dad. And Odysseus is like, cool, son. Come kill these guys with me. And they kill all the suitors, and they like go see his parents again. It's cute, and he like hangs out with his wife. And I'm leaving out a lot of details about like the nurse who recognizes him, and Penelope had tried making a shroud to buy herself some time for her father-in-law who was gonna die, and then she would undo the shroud every night. I'm leaving out a lot of details. Read the book yourself, my guy. That's basically Odysseus' story, though. That's all. Thanks for watching, folks. I really liked the Odyssey. I love Greek mythology. I think it's super interesting. There's a lot of depravity in Greek mythology and a lot of weird things, but I think it was super interesting still. And Odysseus is one of those heroes that is kind of, I mean, he's stupid at times, but he's also a very good man. Like, Hercules is not a super great man despite doing all these amazing things. He wasn't a great guy. The reading was a little difficult. It is written, originally it was a poem in ancient Greek, and so if you've ever read poetry in English, it kind of takes a minute to get into and understand the flow of it. Now imagine you're reading a translated version of a poem. So it is a little difficult. I wouldn't say it's impossible. You do have to have a certain level of intellect to understand what's going on if you read the book, the version that I did. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. This book took me, I think, about 9 months to finish. I started it in like September and I finished it in like January? So that's probably like 6 months. I'm such a liar. I'm sorry. Out of 5 stars, I think I gave this one like a 4.8, 4.9. I mark it down because there is a lot of repetition, because Odysseus meets a couple different people and he's got to retell his own story that you've already read. So I mark it down for a little bit of repetition, but it wasn't bad. It's very high marking in my eyes. I do recommend it. I think everybody should read a version of the Odyssey. Be careful which version you read of the Odyssey. There are translations that can take things totally out of context, totally out of whack. So please be careful what version you are going to peruse, but I do recommend doing so. Overall, my thoughts and feelings are very positive. I enjoy Greek mythology. I find it interesting and entertaining. I like Odysseus. He's a good man. And I love that we get so many of our references and so many modern day ideas and phrasings from Greek mythology and these Greek stories. Or were the gods' punishment for Odysseus fair or just? Here's the thing. Poseidon, I understand. I think Poseidon could have given up after a while, after like 10 years of like tormenting Odysseus. He could have given up, but I understand why he had to defend his son's honor. Zeus, I also hate. He sucks. I don't like Zeus. In any Greek mythology story, Zeus sucks. He's the worst. I hate him. I wish Apollo could have been a better god and handled the massacring of his sacred animals himself as opposed to calling his dad, but whatevs. And Athena, you know, I can't fault Athena. She befriends both Odysseus and Telemachus, and she only leaves Odysseus because of his own folly, because he didn't heed her advice. And you know, she was right, so I can't be too mad at her about that. In the world of Greek mythology, why does Odysseus stand out as an outlier in fidelity? Super easy. The Greeks were very free and loving with both their love and their bodies. Every other hero, just about every single other hero in Greek mythology, cheats on his wife, hooks up with random people and or creatures. Same with all the gods. Why do you think they have so many demigods and monsters around? Keep it in your pants, people. Come on, not that hard. And Odysseus really stands out because it is his love and desire to see Penelope that pushes him to keep going. There are multiple times in his story where he could have given up. He could have lived with Circe, he could have lived with Calypso, he could have just died. And he chose not to because he wanted to see his wife and son again. That is an untold story nowadays. You know, unless this is Liam Neeson's Taken, you're really not seeing a lot of that. What do you think the lasting impact was on Telemachus? That poor boy was probably so happy to see his dad for the first time in his entire life. But I imagine he gained a lot of his knowledge and his wherewithal to be a man from old servants, the friends of Odysseus, his grandpa, right? But there is no gap that will ever fill that of a parent. And so I do mourn a little bit for Telemachus. I'm happy that he does get to finally meet his dad. A little sad that it happens once he's already reached adulthood, but never too late to make amends. Also, kind of sick that the first meeting of your dad, after hearing all these great stories about the wonderful Odysseus, this mighty king, this great warrior, the first time you meet him, he's massacring all these suitors who have been bullying you and using and invading your house for years. So that's kind of sick. I'm sure that was like a shining moment in Telemachus' eyes, like, oh my gosh, my dad's amazing. You know, like that kind of cool. Kind of dark, but kind of cool. Does the prose add or subtract to the story? Add for sure. The Odyssey is something that's been adapted so many different times. I think the original form of the poetry style is beautiful. I think that it's lovely to read. It's a reason it's called an epic. Would this be better as an oral retelling, or does the written form maintain the original's intention? I think the written form does maintain the original's intention fairly well. I don't think a lot is lost. Also, this story is long. An oral retelling would take quite a while. The best adaptation of an oral retelling that I've heard honestly has been Epic the Musical by Jorge Rivera Herrera. I think that version is beautiful and it's very, very well done. It's very well executed. I think the literature still holds its own against what the story is trying to say. Overall, those are my thoughts, my feelings, my summary about the Odyssey and my experience reading it. I had a great time doing so. I recommend all of you pick up a version of the Odyssey and fall into this Greek myth, discover the highs and lows of Odysseus and how he really feels throughout his journey. I have loved seeing all the jokes and the memes online from the spark around Christopher Nolan's adaptation of the Odyssey. I think it's been very fun to see. Have you watched the new adaptation? Do you like it? What other forms of the Odyssey have you consumed or been exposed to? Have you read it yourself? What do you think about Epic the Musical? Overall, what are your thoughts and feelings? How do you think Telemachus and Penelope fared seeing Odysseus come home? What do you think those lasting effects will be on Odysseus and the rest of his life? And make sure to like and subscribe if you like what you see and you want to see more. Leave a comment. I would love to see what your thoughts are, and I would love to respond to you. Thank you.